Hey guys, and welcome back to Mad About Skin. In today's video, we're discussing, is it all over for tretinoin? Tretinoin has often been termed the gold standard in anti-aging. It's been the best-selling prescription-strength retinoid for the longest time ever. However, in 2026, it's reported that tretinoin prescription volumes are actually down by 24%. And a lot of the online subscription services which are selling tretinoin seem to be struggling to make their profits. And this has led a lot of people to ask, what's really going on? Well, it's actually really simple. Tretinoin has been usurped by a newcomer in the anti-aging field called Tazarotene. Tazarotene has been hailed by a lot of the online dermatologists as a new generation elevated anti-aging option. And lots of the big content creators and skin influencers are switching from Tretinoin to Tazarotene. I know lots of you guys are following suit. Well, in today's video, we're going to unpack everything. I want to take a close look at Tretinoin versus Tazarotene so we can work out together which is the very best when it comes to anti-aging, and you can choose the right one for your individual skin's needs. Sit back, relax, and let's talk the future of tretinoin. Now, in today's video, I'm going to be as impartial as possible, just giving you guys the pros, the cons, both sides of the story, so that you have the information you need in order to make the right decisions when it comes to your own skincare routine. If you appreciate this style of content where we really do a deep dive into specific ingredients, then make sure to let me know by reaching down and giving the video a big thumbs up and a like. I do always check the like counts of videos, and where they're higher on certain forms of content, I'm more likely to replicate that in the future, because ultimately I want to create the content that you guys most enjoy watching. I'd also love to know what your own experience has been with tretinoin and Tazarotene. Let's use the comment section like a little bit of a poll. If you're fully team Tret, let me know by leaving the hashtag Tret down in the comments below. If you've moved on to Tazarotene, again, let me know by leaving hashtag Taz, T-A-Z, down in the comments, and that way we can see where the true thoughts and opinions of the Mad About Skin community lie. I'll be sharing with you my own tretinoin before and after stories and how my own skin has changed since moving on to Tazarotene. And of course, I'd love to hear your feedback, because here on Mad About Skin, we're one big community that really can learn from each other. Now, without further ado, let's cut that waffle and delve straight on in. So let's start out with a brief overview of both of these ingredients, and then we're going to come onto the pros, the cons, and the comparison. At the end of the video, I'll share with you my own experiences, first with tretinoin, then more recently with Tazarotene, and we'll summarize everything at the end. So tretinoin has been hailed as the gold standard in anti-aging for the past 20 years. It has decades worth of research and data to sit behind it to show just how effective it is when it comes to boosting collagen and elastin production. It also helps to organize the collagen we already have in a more strategic way. So it really has multiple pathways to delivering that great anti-aging outcome that we all crave. Tretinoin also increases cellular turnover, leading to a smoother look to our skin, and it's proven to have some significant benefits when it comes to fading and tackling hyperpigmentation. It really is one of those ingredients that does an awful lot, but a lot of people report significant side effects and irritation. Most of the side effects and irritation will be at the early stages of incorporating it into your skincare routine, but there are often people will experience just random bouts of sensitivity and irritation, even if they've been established retinoid and tretinoin users for many years. So that irritation is something you always have to be aware of and kind of have in the back of your mind. It will come and it will go, but it's definitely one of the most irritating ingredients that we will apply to our skin as part of our skincare routine. Now, Tazarotene is a much more newer version of a retinoid. It's actually a third generation retinoid, meaning it's one of the newest to hit the market. Whilst it's a newcomer, it does have quite a bit of studies and data to sit behind it to show how effective it is. It's these studies that really have excited the skincare community, because they've showed that whilst Tazarotene works in a similar way to tretinoin to boost collagen and elastin production, to increase cellular turnover, and of course to help smooth out the skin, it does so in a subtly different way, which can lead to quicker results and in some cases enhanced results on certain forms of aging. And I'm going to come on to that later in the video. In about 2025 is where we started to see the big online shift. Lots of the big online dermatologists that have huge followings started to recommend Tazarotene over tretinoin, and that really started the ball rolling. They said that they were using it in their own skincare routines, and this fed through to the wider skincare community, with people singing the praises of tretinoin and saying that they made the switch and would never look back. This trend really just snowballed and escalated as we came into 2026, and that's why we're seeing a significant decline in the number of prescriptions of tretinoin, and of course a corresponding increase in the number of prescriptions for tazarotene. This data coming out of the US, I think, shows that rather than people abandoning their prescription strength tretinoin, they're actually just shifting to tazarotene, which shows a very similar increase that matches the decrease in tretinoin. And this, I guess, makes sense. People are always looking to elevate the results they see, and there's a lot of promise surrounding tazarotene at the moment. However, there are some things that really I think people need to consider before they make the switch themselves. So first and foremost, let's talk about some of the pros of tazarotene over tretinoin. First and foremost, speed of delivery. Now, as humans, I feel we're all very impatient. I'm always in for a quick win. And what these studies first and foremost proved is that tazarotene actually works a lot quicker than tretinoin. The reason for this is it actually attaches itself to certain receptors in the skin, whereas tretinoin will be a more universal ingredient. Tazarotene works in a more targeted way on specific receptors, which is why it delivers in a much shorter time space than tretinoin. Now, this probably doesn't matter for people that have been on tretinoin for the past 10 years. You know, you're already getting the results. Speed isn't really important. But for people that are new to tretinoin, or maybe thinking, I want a quicker result, I'm probably going to opt for tazarotene over tretinoin. So I think the speed of delivery is really important, particularly for people that are new to prescription retinoids. This is probably going to make a difference, and it has a significant quicker mechanism of action than tretinoin. And who doesn't like a quick win? Tazarotene is also proven to deliver greater results on specific forms of aging. I'm talking mainly about photoaging. So aging comes in many different forms, but exposure to sunlight, photoaging, is one of the primary reasons we see hyperpigmentation, dark spots, and of course the emergence of fine lines and wrinkles. Tazarotene and the studies done into it actually prove that it's much more effective against photoaging than tretinoin is. This is actually backed up by the FDA, who have approved both tretinoin and tazarotene, but for subtly different outcomes and therapeutic uses. The FDA recommends tazarotene specifically for photoaging because these studies just show how effective it is. So if your aging is primarily triggered by sun exposure and sun damage, tazarotene is going to be delivering you far greater results than tretinoin, and in that case it might be worth making the switch. For other forms of aging, it's less conclusive as to which is better, so that's the information you need. Do with that what you want, but I think if your primary focus is tackling photoaging, then tazarotene is going to be the ingredient for you. Tazarotene is also proven to deliver enhanced benefits when it comes to tackling psoriasis and acne. Whilst a lot of us will be using tretinoin, tazarotene for aging, they do and were originally approved for very specific therapeutic uses against acne and more recently against psoriasis. These studies show, and this is backed up by the FDA in their analysis of them, that when it comes to tackling psoriasis and inflammatory acne, tazarotene just works far more effectively than tretinoin. This, I think, has become a little bit of a game changer because lots of people were using tretinoin to treat their acne, suffering all those side effects and irritation and not always getting the results they wanted. You can get far greater results from tazarotene, and that's backed up by this data. So if you're using your tretinoin for psoriasis or for acne, particularly inflammatory acne, it's probably worth speaking to your prescriber and shifting over to tazarotene if they approve of that switch. Last but by no means least, let's talk about increase in cell turnover. So when it comes to tretinoin, that just universally dials up your rate of cellular turnover. That's where you get a lot of peeling and flaking, particularly in the earlier stages. This sped up cell turnover is great for eliminating hyperpigmentation and is also really fantastic at keeping that smooth look to the skin. However, not everybody needs a universal dialed up rate of cell turnover, and that's where tazarotene is subtly different. Tazarotene actually evens out the rate of cellular turnover, so yes, it does speed it up, but it also helps to even it out across the skin. This is why it's so effective against psoriasis, which is obviously areas where you have that increased cell turnover. It can help even all of that out. This for me has been a little bit of a game changer because I could never get on top of the shedding and the peeling from tretinoin. However, using tazarotene, I found that those patches of peeling just don't exist anymore. With tretinoin, I was getting peeling here and here, relentlessly. It doesn't matter how I used it or how long I was on it, it just never seemed to abate. I haven't had that issue with Tazarotene. So I find when it comes to increasing cellular turnover, Tazarotene is much more strategic in the way it delivers that, and I certainly definitely appreciate it. Overall, I think the benefits of Tazarotene are proven and they've been endorsed by the FDA. And if you've got specific targeted needs like inflammatory acne, psoriasis, or photoaging, it makes sense to make the switch. If you're already using Tretinoin and you're happy with the results that you're getting, then it might be worth just sticking with what you know. But I think there are some things to consider, some quick cons I want to talk about when it comes to Tazarotene. First and foremost, it can be a little bit more expensive than Tretinoin. Now, we're not talking hundreds of dollars, but I did a rough comparison. Whilst you can get on certain insurance programs, you can get Tretinoin either free or for around a $10 price point. You're probably going to be looking at around $30 for Tazarotene. So it is more expensive. It's not prohibitively expensive, but it is more expensive. If you're buying it outside of the US, then you're looking at around 20% more for this equivalent amount of Tazarotene of what you'll get for Tretinoin. So there is a price differential. For me, I don't think it's that significant, but it is definitely there. And if you're on a very limited budget, then that's something you're going to want to factor in. You're also going to look at accessibility. Really easy to access both Tretinoin and Tazarotene in the US. However, if you're in Europe, it's actually quite difficult to get your hands on Tazarotene. It is improving, the access is improving, and here in the UK you can now get it. But that's something that's evolving over time. So don't be surprised if you have a consultation with your prescriber and they say, it's going to be really difficult to get your hands on that. That's something that's very specific to 2026. So we should see that accessibility increase as we move through this year and into next. But again, that's something, if you can't get your hands on Tazarotene, then it really doesn't matter whether it might be the better option for you. It's not an option. And that's definitely something you need to bear in mind. For me, I never got on with Tretinoin. And that's not to say that I don't want to come at this video as coming from a negative and a bias against Tretinoin, because it works really, really well for so many people. I just wasn't one of those people. I got so much sensitivity and irritation that never seemed to went away. I did so much to try and mitigate that. Whatever I did, it just didn't work. So before I gave up on prescription retinoids altogether, I spoke to my prescriber and they said, try Tazarotene, you might be surprised. And I genuinely was. I feel like I've got advanced results versus using Tretinoin. I'm certainly able to use it more frequently, which is why I'm getting those better results, and it's much less sensitizing on the skin. Now, there are some people out there that will say, well, Tazarotene is more sensitizing. Others say it's less sensitizing. If you read any of the data and the studies into this, and there's not a whole lot of side-by-side comparisons in terms of clinical studies into the two, looking at the sensitivity profile, and they don't really agree. Some studies will show that Tazarotene is less sensitizing on the skin than Tretinoin. Others will say it's more sensitizing. And what I've really learned in this and reading your comments in videos where I've talked about this topic already is it seems to be a mixed bag. A lot of people will tolerate Tretinoin quite well, especially after that initial adjustment period, whereas some people say they just can't tolerate it and they've had no issues whatsoever with Tazarotene. I think it just comes down to your individual skin. For me, at least, I found Tazarotene to be much less sensitizing than Tretinoin. I know that other people have the opposite experience, and so there is going to be an element of trial and error here. I don't think anything conclusively proves that one or the other is more or less sensitizing. So let me know at this point in the video if you've tried Tretinoin, if you've tried Tazarotene, which did you find was less sensitizing? Which would you recommend more for those that are struggling with retinoid sensitivity? I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. For me, moving from Tretinoin to Tazarotene was the best decision I ever made. It now allows me to be consistent with my high strength retinoids in a way that I wasn't able to be before, which means I'm getting far greater results. Some of that is because I think genuinely Tazarotene works better, but a lot of it is because I can now be consistent, and consistency is key in skincare, which is why I'm getting those elevated anti-aging results. I'm really happy. I personally am delighted that I made the switch, and whilst it can be a little difficult to get your hands on Tazarotene here in the UK, I'm glad that I persevered. And I would love to hear from you guys at this point. What's your own experiences been? Hopefully this video has been helpful. If it has, let me know by reaching down and giving the video a big thumbs up and a like. I really do appreciate this, and just thank you from the bottom of my heart for each and every one of you that has watched through to the bitter end. These topics I know can be a little sciencey, they can be a little bit detailed, but I really do appreciate your support and all the kindness you show me. So yeah, wherever in the world you are, guys, and whatever prescription strength retinoid you happen to use, stay safe, stay well, I love your skin. Take care. Bye.